So, who does the curses fit? The so-called curses of Israel. Who do they fit? Let's find out. Deuteronomy 6. Let's read from the top. This is the commandments, the statutes, and the ordinances that Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your Elohim, commanded to teach you to perform in the land into which you are about to pass, to possess it, in order that you fear Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments that I command you, you, your son, your son's son, all the days of your life, and in order that your days may be lengthened. And you shall therefore hearken, O Israel, and be sure to perform, so that it will be good for you, and so that you may increase exceedingly, just as Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, the God of your fathers, spoke to you, a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh is our God. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh is one. And you shall love Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God, with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your means. This appeal, which has become the fundamental confession of faith of Judaism, constitutes without doubt the heart of the primitive Deuteronomy of the 7th century. The Shema is not my focus today. We will tackle it extensively in the How Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh Became God series on YouTube. But here I want to focus on verses 5 and ask some questions that most people don't pause to ask. What does you shall love Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh mean? I'll ask again. What does you shall love Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh mean? What does it mean here? This is a command. Can you command love? Any lover would tell you how impossible that is. Now, is this referring to sentimental or passionate love? Apparently, the verb love here has a sense that is neither sentimental nor passionate. Not at all. Look at Deuteronomy 10:12. And now, O Israel, what does Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh your God ask of you? Only to fear Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh your God, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to worship Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh your God with all your heart and with all your soul. So when we combine all that we've read, we notice that the exhortation to love God is accompanied by verbs like fear, serve, obey. These terms don't belong in sentimental or passionate love. No, these terms belong more to the semantic field of loyalty and submission, like a liege lord. No wonder we find astonishing similarities to this command to love in the Assyrian vassal treaties, where the high king must be loved by the vassal or by his vassal. I had mentioned in the last video that Deuteronomy is influenced by Assyrian ideologies. I mentioned that if you pay attention carefully, you would notice that Solomon is portrayed as an Assyrian king. And I'm proving that In this video, look at the Treaty of ASSARHADDON. This is about 672 BC. You shall love Ashurbanipal, son of Esarhaddon, king of Assyria, as yourself. Look at another treaty from 650 BC. We will love Ashurbanipal, king of Assyria, and hate his enemy. For this day and for as long as we live, Ashurbanipal will be our king and lord. We will neither establish nor seek another king or lord for ourselves. The parallels with the central commandment of Deuteronomy are clear. So Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh is presented in Josiah's reform like an Assyrian liege lord. Just like I said, Shlomo is done the same. He's portrayed like an Assyrian king. But here, the parallels with the central commandment of Deuteronomy, they are pretty clear here. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh is presented in Josiah's reforms like an Assyrian liege lord. We can even expand this parallel further, since the organization of the entire book of Deuteronomy could be understood as coming out of a vassal treaty. Which one? The vassal treaty of ASSARHADDON. The following elements of the book of Deuteronomy occur in the Assyrian vassal treaties. What are they? A. They contain a historical prologue narrating the encounter between the liege lord and the vassal. There is a principal commandment, exclusive allegiance to the Assyrian king. There are specific stipulations, that is tribute, military obligations. There is an appeal to the gods as witnesses who guarantee the validity of the treaty. And then there are blessings and curses for those who do or do not respect the stipulations of the treaty. These elements we see in the vassal treaties of the Assyrians, and these same elements are found in the book of Deuteronomy. All of these elements are to be found in Deuteronomy. It is easy to see that. How do we explain this? The forms and the list of the curses in Deuteronomy 28 from 20 to 48 or 44, are so like a treaty with Esarhaddon, king of Assyria, that it can only be explained by a literary dependence. Deuteronomy depended on the vassal treaties of Assyria. Let me give you some examples. Treaty of Esarhaddon, 530. Just as rain does not fall from a brazen heaven, so may rain and dew not come upon your fields and your meadows. Instead of dew, may burning coals rain on your land. It should remind you of Deuteronomy 28:24. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh would change the rain of your land into powder, and dust shall come down from the sky until you are destroyed. Pause this video and look at the similarities. Let's look at another one. May Ninuta, the foremost among the gods, fell you with his fierce arrow. May he fill the plain with your blood and feed your flesh to the eagle and the vulture. We see this in Deuteronomy 28:26. Your corpse shall be food for every bird of the sky, an animal of the earth, and there shall be no one to frighten them away. Pause the video and look at the parallels. Let's look at another one. May sin, the brightest of heaven and earth, clothe you with leprosy and forbid you entering into the presence of the gods and of the king. Roam the desert like the wild donkey and the gazelle. Sounds very much like Deuteronomy 28:27. Yahweh will strike you with the boils of Egypt, with ulcers, scurvy, and itch, of which you cannot be healed. We know that the sixth plague in Egypt was this. It was a plague of an acute epidemic skin disease characterized by boils that eventually formed ulcers on the skin, according to the biblical text. Leprosy. Pause it and look at the parallels. Let's look at another one, giving you receipts. May Shemesh, the light of heaven and earth, not judge you justly. May he remove your eyesight, walk about in darkness. Sounds like Deuteronomy 28:28. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh will strike you with madness, blindness, and confusion of mind. Pause the video and look at the parallels. These and other parallels only allow the conclusion that a copy of ASSARHADDON's treaty was available in Jerusalem, which strongly influenced the first edition of Deuteronomy. How many people know that there is a first and a second edition of Deuteronomy? We'll get to that. Nobody focuses on the book. All they focus on is curses because it looks familiar. No chance. Let's do real scholarship. Pause this video and look at this treaty of ASSARHADDON and Deuteronomy 13, and you will notice that the author of Deuteronomy 13 copied from ASSARHADDON's treaty. Deuteronomy 13 is influenced by the treaty of ASSARHADDON. Notice I did not say plagiarized. There is nothing like that in the ancient Near East. It is influenced by it. What conclusions should we draw from the fact that the authors of Deuteronomy use a vassal treaty as a model to describe the relationship between Yahweh and his people? In fact, the word berit, the central term in Deuteronomy, berit, covenant, which we translate as alliance or covenant, could be rendered equally well by the word treaty. What we have is an oppressive theology where Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh appears as a tyrant who demands blind obedience from his faithful servants and sanctions all transgressions against his laws by the worst curses. This is why you are forced to love Yud He Vav He. You are commanded to love Yud He Vav He. You cannot command love. Commanded love is not sentimental or passionate. No. So who do the curses fit? We should be honest and answer correctly that they fit ASSARHADDON's vassal treaty, not Hebrews in America. That's poor scholarship.